Hey, this is Misery Loves Company, a weekly social reading series hosted by miserytourism.com. Every Friday, we welcome outsider and transgressive writers to share their work with us. And it's Friday again, so let's get rolling here. First up on the docket is Stu Buck, who, can you believe it, stood us up again? Stu, if you're watching this video, no, I'm not gonna lecture Stu. I'll lecture him in private. But first up for real then is Brandon.
Hi guys. So I'm going to bring two little pieces here, introducing some content from the world setting that I've been working on. Hopefully you enjoy. Accessing Inquisitor Archives. Subject, Terracivore. Archival ID number 00000159. Archival date, unknown. Classification, first contact. Begin audio log recording. Transmit signal to the office of High Inquisitor Vaude. Inquisitor 5th Class Garvin Mills entering the perimeter of the town of Gilhome, accompanied by Brigade 22 of Anselden. Investigation pertains to lack of communication from Garrison 196 in the past 3 weeks. Zerosian scan and final report from Garrison 196 confirmed. The town appears to have been leveled by something underground. I don't know what the scientists meant by seismic activity, but this definitely looks like an earthquake's aftermath to me. No signs of anyone in the town. Some of these structures seem to have been picked at. Large debris moved around in ways that don't match a collapse. Several large red stains on the pavement. We'll be monitoring for signs of looter activity. Approaching the garrison location now. Entrance is undamaged. Walls are badly compromised by neighboring structures. Exercising extraction protocols. We've gained entry to the garrison. Descending stairwell. No sign of guardsmen. Arsenal lockers are open and emptied. Locks don't appear to have been tampered with. No damage to hinges or jams. Most probable explanation is that the guardsmen armed themselves, attempting to restore power at a comms terminal to enable tracking markers. Inquisitor, sir, over here. Foundation wall's been breached. Stone appears to have been breached from outside the cellar foundation. Rubble is scattered outward a short distance, no more than a few feet. No signs of explosives or ignition. Stone appears to have been weakened somehow and pushed inward. Edges are polished smooth, likely some kind of powerful corrosive agent. No active residues or compounds. Collecting samples. Inquisitor, sir, comms power restored. Tracking markers active, 80 yards east, 30 yards north, 20 yards down. Breach leads to some form of tunnel. Walls showing similar qualities to the stone of the foundation. Doesn't look natural. Tunnel appears to descend at an angle, 30 degrees by my estimate. Deploying luminary drones and authorizing silvered munitions protocols as a precaution. Entering tunnel. 12 yards in, documenting a terrible smell. Acidic, vaguely metallic. Haven't encountered anything like this before. Worse than the Baron massacre in the old sewers. The air feels damp, high humidity, temperature rising. Surface was the typically dry chill for this time of year, indicating the heat source is ahead. Definite signs of trouble. Tunnel floor feels slick. Luminary drones providing enough light to see shapes and surfaces, but color is indistinct other than that it is dark. Collecting samples. Samples held to the light have a distinct red color and high viscosity. Resembles blood. Continuing to advance. 40 yards in. Odor is becoming more intense. Never smelled anything like this in my life. Enacting mask protocols. Don't know if the recorder is picking this up, but there's some kind of guttural noises up ahead. Grunting and growling. Not like any animal I've heard. Brigade instructed to be ready to fire. Turning a bend in the tunnel. Will maintain radio silence as precaution. Alright, estimated 90 yards in. Tunnel terminates in a large chamber. We found the people of Gilhome, at least what's left of them. Deploying visualization drones. You'll have to see this for yourself. Bodies are piled in the center. Not going to try to estimate a number. It's a lot. Most are not intact. It's hot down here. Must be accelerating decomp. Some kind of pool of fluid underneath the pile. Ah, fuck. The masks don't do anything down here. Everything's rotting. Something's hunched over across the room. Looks like it just puked something up into the pile. Whatever it is just ran off down another tunnel. Getting a closer look. You gotta be fucking kidding me. There's something moving around in the liquid. Eternal damnation. There's some kind of maggots. Ugly fucking things, too. Extracting one for a better look. Split lower jaw, some kind of weird tongue. Sir, did you hear that? Fuck. 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 Fall back. Fuck. Some kind of biped. Big as we are. Built like a human. Purple like a bruise. Big fucking teeth. Clawed hands. There's more of them. They can fucking climb like spiders. Moving as fast as we can. Gotta get out and collapse the tunnel. Get the fucking solar units in out here, sir. Burn the whole damn place. Fuck. We're out of the tunnel. Drop the ceiling and hold them back. Heading for evac point. Fuck, it's got a fucking axe. Shoot it! Shoot it! End of transmission. Inquisitor 5th Class Garvin Mills shows no further records. Missing, presumed dead. Terrorvore threat status remains active. No nest designated for extermination. Subject, Terrorvore. Archival ID number 0001894. Classification, Autopsy Subject TKW12. Author, Dr. Jacob Phil XM. Subject TKW12, cause of death known to be execution by rifle fire, recovered from grounds of Gilholm slaughter. As with the previous 11 partial subjects, TKW12 displays the signifiers associated with what we once considered the old wives' tales surrounding the Terrorvore common to southeastern Olor. Given the nature of the seismic activity that occurred near Gilholm shortly before these creatures were discovered, further research will be required into the existence or lack thereof of the so-called ancient god named the Urvorleth. Until these studies are complete, these theories remain unconfirmed. Subject TKW12 measures 235 centimeters in height. Weight is 232 kilograms. Estimated weight when alive could exceed 240 kilograms or more. Skin colorization is predominantly blue, with mottling of purple and red tones and a thick leathery consistency. Dermal layer is approximately 15 millimeters thick, with a pronounced increase of the density of the outermost 5 millimeters. Facial features strongly resemble those typically seen in specimens of the turtle family. Rounded, short muzzle. 2 rows of teeth, the outermost bearing a strong resemblance in placement to those of humans, but with a second set of canine teeth next to the expected set, and the innermost row bearing a similar serration to those of the shark. Tongue is approximately 5 times the length of a human specimen of similar size, and appears to retract into a cavity in the specimen's throat. Cranium is surprisingly large and round, perhaps accounting for the specimen's proclivity for using tools, and suggesting a possible level of salience. Brain scans reveal similar lobe structures to those of a human, which could corroborate the theory that these creatures are intelligent, though additional research on a live specimen is required. Bone density scans reveal that the skeletal mass of specimen TKW12 is roughly 4 times that of a typical human, and osseous samplings indicate a high level of silicate structures replacing calcium deposits. Aside from the length of the arms and the digitigrade structure of TKW12's legs, skeletal structure mimics that of a human. TKW12 lacks the extended tail structure found in TKW11 and TKW3, suggesting that this species possesses a level of morphic adaptation. Examination of TKW12's hands reveals high concentrations of follicles similar to those found in insectoid limbs, likely explaining reports of a spider-like ability to climb rock surfaces. TKW12's talons have been analyzed, revealing themselves to be formed of the dense silicate compound rather than keratin, and are protrusions of bone rather than a grown surface structure. Despite documentation of this specimen gutting Brigadier 22-18 through the steel plate vest, there was little damage to these silicate talons or the bones to which they are attached. tendon structures appear to be incredibly strong and are in a constant tension, even with treatments to prevent rigor mortis. Glands in TKW12's wrists secrete a powerful corrosive compound that we have tested against organic and inorganic matter and found that only silicate structures show any substantial resistance. Body cavity examination reveals a complex system that unifies both digestive and reproductive systems. TKW12 possesses 3 stomachs, 2 distinct lengths of intestine, 4 livers, and 6 kidneys. An organ was discovered connected to the specimen's esophagus that contained 24 partially formed larval specimens. Report will be entered on specimens TKL-1 when complete. Reproductive organ shows no other access point, indicating that the larva would be regurgitated by the parent specimen into the breeding pits detailed in reports TKN1 and TKN4. Subject TKW12 decomposed rapidly against our best efforts before their further testing could be completed. Remains were disposed of via incineration.
Man, you even did the sound effects. You even did the sound effects. Man, as always, your delivery here was pitch perfect. And I like the fact that you actually, it seems like you made a conscious decision to dial back the intensity of your delivery, right? To have it more subdued and more in line with the kind of like, you know, the like, you know, the like mission log nature of this piece, right? And I thought that was a really cool choice, because you could easily have like overwhelmed us with your baritone like usual, right? I appreciate that you took it back to match the nature of the piece. I also really dig, you keep finding like more and more inventive ways to package you know, what's essentially like world building stuff, or what's like setting lore stuff, which is cool, because so often the way like fantasy setting lore is presented is so stale, you know?
Exactly.
And this is like, it's like halfway between like a short story and like an entry in like a TTRPG book or something. And I think you found the right balance there. So yeah, man,
Thank you.
fun shit, man. Thank you for sharing.
Thanks.
And typically gross.
I really like the like William said, the subdued nature of it, because that it sounds kind of like Aliens, or like, you know, the colonial marines from Aliens, if they weren't completely fucking stupid. Like, I guess it'd be sort of like a more, not realistic, but a more like kind of like, you know, this guy pretty much knows that he's sort of fucked, and it's really kind of frightening to hear that, like in your voice and in the, you know, in the delivery of it. It's really, it makes it more scary.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, man. So Arja is up next. And Arja, this is your first time reading at Misery Loves Company, right?
Yes, it is.
And you're going to be reading a piece that was originally published in Misery Tourism, please.
Yes. Yep.
Great. Let me just.
Now, Arja, do you have a that I can add you on Twitter or whatever?
No, I don't really believe in Twitter, sadly.
That's a wise decision, honestly.
I don't either, but I'm there every fucking day. I don't know why.
Yeah. Well, this piece is quite long, so I'm going to just kind of read some selections from it. Whether or not it's coherent, I don't know. So join the journey, guys. Okay, so this is Johnny had a dream about the devil. And I wrote this like 2-ish years ago, during a very existentialist phase of my writing. 1. I am at the Walmart and I feel dead. All those who have loved me and whom I have loved have forsaken me. And last night I saw the hurt in your daddy's Facebook page, in your eyes, waiting by the phone for his call, giving me the somber news that you started looking on Craigslist for love and have become an atheist again. I am at the Walmart and I feel dead, and the Menards don't feel like home no more. Because in my dreams, it is snowing again, and the middle-aged men have got plastic surgery, showing off their new faces, walking the hallways of pale offices, shining like God. With the people glaring and the flags waving, and the 50-foot tall Hooters girl bouncing. Under her legs is the chaos at the beginning of the world. I remember that day you lost all your dignity. In your eyes, I saw the hurt and the hunger. Johnny, I loved you like my own brother. And now you are sitting on the front porch steps with your papa, saying you don't believe in anything or anyone anymore, rocking back and forth in your daddy's arms, crying for the world, drinking milk out of his hands. He teaches you how to be a man. You glued pubic hairs to your chin and showed your face to the world like a man. Ah, you thought the world was a big fat nipple, always ready to give to you. Oh, how I howled these 80s ballads at the moon in the middle of this dark, stormy summer night. Johnny, I loved you like my own brother. Is it selfish to feel like Christ? Am I supposed to smile knowingly through the betrayal? I understand the pain of him now. In the stead of the night, here lies my own passion. Here lies my own agony. Here lies my American dream. Rest in peace dearly. Lord, where are my brothers and sisters now? God, has all of my life come to this? 5. I sat in the midnight hour with the candle burning in front of me and spun the world on my finger, where I watched as everything everywhere was the same. Hunger, death, humiliation, greed, ignorance, crime, depravity, blackmail, deceit, the inhumanity of man to man, the fetters, the harness, the whip, the halter, the bridle, the spurs, finger on the caliber, man walking the streets of bloody New York in a degrading suit and tie, lowest of low, greatest animal of all time. You go to Hooters on a rainy Friday night. It's muggy, sticky, damp inside. Later that night, you meet behind a dumpster like a rat or sewer trash. Some street boys deal you cocaine. And you do a line in the movie theater bathroom and watch a Star Wars rerun. You look at yourself in the mirror. You feel like the last Jedi. You taste your millennial wife in the middle of the night and lap up your tongue like a hungry dog. You are an aged peach. She doesn't even make the noises like she used to. The television plays psychiatric static, French radio, commercial advertisements. She goes to sleep and you play beautiful music. For her, for yourself, for no one. All you ever wanted was a good Midwestern girl. Your children to love beer and cheese, and you, TV, football, and sweaters, going to Walmart 4 times a week. 6. God grooms me on the head like a pet. There is no time to be wasted on the dead. We live in the eternal question. You're still a mystery to me, a pledge of allegiance to Christ, to die, to la vie, to life, to a lottery that'll doom me. The lonely boys, the middle-aged men, the Iowa girls leave me on red. Johnny, is that brain of yours bugging you any longer? You never bothered to pick up the phone and remember me, your brother. The entire world a rotting fruit, a slush of modern melodrama. The light and the life of the human race, all one big train boarded to nonsense. Unintelligible, intangible, open up your mandible. Jaws of a cockroach, jaws of reproach, laid sprawled across a couch, seizing, abdomen, wing, middle legs, antennae, ganglion, mesothorax. In the middle of an abandoned cornfield, there's a gentleman's club. Live, girls, girls, girls. So after dinner, I go in to escape for some company and good conversation. I sit in the corner and watch the dance, dressed in a corn silk coat, top hat, mustache, whispering, the eternal masculine, the eternal feminine, the eternal human. The muscular bodyguard and his 6-foot-tall black bloodhound. These red boots and black glasses, a Pepto-Bismol to suit the stomach, much to my nausea. Spinning head, I keep a shining smile, glint like that of a knife, a glacier. I give my life savings away to them. I go backstage to the refrigerator and meet one named Pam. Pam, I am, she said to me. Would you like my green eyes and ham? Would you like to see my green American money and ham? She's frozen inside with the rest of the groceries, the broccoli, the easy cheese, great value peas. She shook it in my face and pulled me closer, asking, are you here looking for love? I looked down, tired, twirled my four-leaf clover. Grotesque bodies dancing in the neon lights, my nausea, in the middle of nowhere, in the middle of the night, in a gentleman's club. Poker, Pac-Man, snakes, solitaire, the cards shuffle. With a leg up on my face, I wipe the sweat. My mom calls me on landline. I pick up in the phone booth and say, oh, mama, it's the middle of life and it's so very lonely. 13. In the Iowa casino, I smoke my cigar and gamble my whole life on some internet people who promise me love. After watching nude bodies dancing on the internet and talking to strangers, I get tired and make a glass of whiskey and cocaine. Johnny, how can I forget? You lost your innocence when your mama and daddy grabbed you by the ear and told you what America is. I play the slots, roll the dice, bet all the chips. Madman mother, I go to visit God the Father as a Yeti living in an abandoned cave. The nights were flaming with fire. I sit in the dark and tell him the worst dream was, the one in which is revealed man's nature. Johnny flung his head and heart at the wall when he didn't get what he wants. On the telephone, he yelled at the whole world. Later in a dream, he calls me very ill and on the brink of death. His house was expanded inside and covered in Christmas lights, and the mother blab, blab, blabbing, the father quietly screaming inside, digging the grave. There was no snow on the ground. In my dystopian bubble, I feel happy alone. I and the youths down milk doused with narcotics. It was agony on the breast. It was tragedy turned up till the meters broke. Can you handle a 2-second joke? Daddy's listening to a Whitesnake song. Is this the love I'm searching for? The soccer moms set the fire burning in their minivans. Isolated, I feel guilty and seek God's repose in the cave. In the way I deceived him, and that chance encounter at another time, in another life, when it by no means suits my sorry convenience to see human nature face to face. Johnny, in my dream, you are dying around Christmas time, and in front of your house, all the solar lamps are lit. It was an unholy night. The last moments before your death, you regretted you were locked in the bathroom with another internet girl, where you say to me those revered last words, I don't believe in anything or anyone. I don't believe, I don't believe, I don't believe. I am just a newborn beatified. I feel the sorrows of Christ on this cold, snowless night. I hate my shadow. Like an instinctive animal, irrational, undesirable, I carry my shadow. In the time of descent, hollow shadow, shedding skin, chaos, melancholia, insincere innocence. Mama, I don't want to open my eyes. I came out of the womb. I walked out of the tomb. I danced into my doom. I meet myself time and time again in 1,000 disguises. The goat giving a sermon. Reject, repress, hide, blame, shame, guilt. Oh, guilt, guilt, guilt. I rolled the boulder up and up the hill, only to see it roll down again. Here was man, condemned to repeat forever the same meaninglessness. The mysteries of life, the unreasonable silence of the universe in response. Was enough enough? In the garden that evening day when we went walking, Johnny said, why do you tell me about time and space when I am hungry? I do not have a moment for a penny. I do not have a moment for all these things. When will it stop? How will it end? These great mysteries of life at our fingertips. In the backyard of a rich woman's summer house, they have tea. There's a spread of croquet and greenery. It is humid and evening, and the bugs keep landing on us. The intellectual man speaking. To avoid fear, take refuge in reflection. Thus spoke Zarathustra, thus spoke Malaysia, thus spoke the 8-winged bug crawling on my window screen. Thus spoke HH rocking D. Hayes on a rocking chair in the TP. Thus spoke the middle-aged men and the lonely boys, and thus spoke Johnny himself, holding me in his tepid, unenthusiastic arms. In the tea room where the sun is bright, you talk about atheism in an intellectual circle, with your monocles secured and your velvet coat pant on. As day passes by and evening comes, everybody leaves the garden and it is just you and I. And you continue talking on and on and on to the walls, to the stars. We grow old, weary together, the cancer of time eating us all away. 15. Under a tree on a beautiful golden day, you wait for a mysterious figure who never arrives. Eyeball sliced right open, metal arm holding you wide, slice by slice, carving human meat, selling it in plastic fish bags. The cloaked figures, the grim reapers, come to this black market, covering their faces. Insanity, passionate delirium, on a dark and mysterious night, who dare seek the truth about love? Struggling, nude and beastly against the staircase, patting the slippery banisters, enchanted hunter. Oh my darling, this intolerable bliss. Coughing, spitting, bleeding majestically in the bathtub. A room full of flowers, wrapped in a big, very close pink blanket. Open windows, a delicate summer's breeze, flapping and heaving, half your face blown off. The silence of a suburban neighborhood. You smoked your last cigarette yesterday. You're going to die in a moment. I want you to concentrate. Concentrate. A gentle shadow comes behind you, one hand over the eyes, embrace you from the back. The human is a frightened animal, taking the whole weight of the world on its shoulders. It was all indifferent. What is this life? What is this death? Do we have an existence beyond it? Is this all one big confused fantasy? "17. I opened my arms and embraced the world like a brother. It put its arms around me back. We lived and stayed just like that. And for the first time, the large angry crowd let down their pitchforks and knives, with the flames finally burnt out. It was snowing softly. There was the gentle indifference. The whole world is my friend." That's all.
Arja, that was devastating. So, okay, so I haven't read this in a while. It was probably a year or so that we accepted it, right? And listening to you read it now, oh my God, it got me all over again. I love this poem is fucking wild. It's wonderful, and I love the way that it's structured, right? Because yes, this is an epic poem, right? This is a poem that's epic, like in a very literal sense in terms of its length, right? But also epic in scope and epic in tone. But it is constantly anchored with these very specific details about very specific human lives, right? It's anchored so precisely in like the banal, like day-to-day miseries that human beings endure. And because it's so well anchored in that, and because it's so like full of these like real intimate but very specific moments, it's able to like take on a greater sense of significance, right? It never gets lost in abstraction. A lot of times people will try to do epic poetry, especially what you're doing here, which is kind of in the vein of like The Wasteland or something. A lot of times when people try to approach poetry like this, try to like approach this wasteland type poetry, they will get really lost in abstraction. And what you've done here is like you have anchored it so specifically in what feels like real human lives. And you're allowing then like the existential like angst and pain and all the literary references to work within that very real, very human framework. So this is just a tremendous, tremendous fucking poem. And thank you for sharing it.
Thanks, William. That really is kind and means a lot. But yeah, it's a little different, and I really didn't like it at first, but I think that it tells the truth, and I think that's what I was really going for.
Yeah, it feels honest. It feels real, right? Well,
So-
Yeah.
Thanks, William.
yeah, thank you. Oh, I think Rudy has something.
I was gonna mention like your delivery of it is really cool too, especially considering all the like musical references and how you kind of how it bounces between like music, like you mentioned Tool and Whitesnake and shit, and then you're back to like this weird, it's existential dread stuff, and it really like so your performance of it with kind of the staccato between some of the lines and a lot of the like the oomph you give some of the you know the emphasis you give some of the words really good because it makes it like I don't know, it's like a weird juxtaposition between like the feeling, the overall like heavy feeling of it and just like sort of the way things are, like just life and shit. Like it's really pretty cool.
Thanks, Rudy. That's really, really kind. Yeah, music is like um a good or a great theme in the poem, and like definitely listen to a lot of music writing it. So it's pretty cool how the two mix and mingle.
Well, thank you so much, Arja. And hopefully you'll come back and read again too.
Hope so.
All right. Thank you so much. And I don't think that Stu or Josh are here, so Coleman is up next. Oh, did we possibly? Oh, well, we also have Colton. Colton, yeah, I saw you unmute Colton. You can actually go next as we wait for Coleman. He might have ducked out here for a second.
No worries. So let's see. I have three pieces. One from the book I published and two new ones that I wrote. I'm gonna try and share the doc here. Should have been more prepared here. But it's about molesting autistic people. It's about hanging Ruth Bader Ginsburg upside down or crucifying her upside down. And then the other piece is about sticking stuff in your wiener hole.
Colton, do you want me to share share the link on Twitter or?
Let's see. If you want to just share that thing, I'm trying to let's see. Copy link. Okay. Let me see if this works here. Okay. Let me know if that works for you, William.
I think you need to set the permissions so that we can read it. I'm getting an access denied.
Okay. Here we go. Let me copy the link again.
John Padula is heckling you, Colton.
God damn it! I'm trying. Okay, that should work.
Yes, it works now, Colton. Thank you.
Okay. I'll go ahead and get started. So the first piece is called Only Friends, Nothing More on Molesting Retards and Leading Men to Their Deaths. A sweet raven flew into my room full of claustrophobia. It landed on my bed. It used its beak to tear a hole in my fitted sheet. A big mouth formed over time, growing silver teeth, purple gums, and a soft tongue. Sex ripped the mouth open wider. Hairy bodies are swimming in a pool of saliva. The raven calls for the noise to stop. Time removes emotion. You stepped on my garden flowers, so I sentence you to death by natural causes. Beautiful souls with killer instincts are happy, relaxed, and engaged. Stimming today is finger flicking, toe curling, and arm rubbing. Oh, how these fidgeting outlaws love the taste of cereal, colored marshmallows made from boiled animal parts, and the cravings for a good mystery. Who took the cookie from the cookie jar? Audiovisual comfort manifested in slowed down Mickey Mouse cartoons. Adam will kick holes in the wall if he can't play GameCube. If you bring Sarah into any long hallway, she starts to scream. Billy throws toys at the ceiling when the AC turns on. Jennifer punches people who take off their hats too quickly. Kingston rips up construction paper and then staples it together. He holds up his creation and says, "Prehistoric dinosaur." Jeremy walks around rubbing his head, asking for candy and a knife. Andrew pulls on the teacher's hair if the door isn't shut all the way. We have to keep the doors open so that nobody can accuse us of molesting the autistic kids. The day before Halloween, I'm dressed up as a suicidal leaf blower, talking to my bar manager wearing a cowboy hat. I'm slowly watching him relapse in front of me. He didn't drink for 2 years before this weekend. I'm making my boss share a PBR with me while we shove whiskey down our throats. A Midtown bartender comes up to the bar. He's the lead singer of a screamo band. He's relapsing too. My costume this year is an alcoholic who can't stop. I turn to my boss and he says, "It's so hard to stop, to go from everything to nothing. I just want to have fun." My boss was shipped to Iraq as an 18-year-old from 2014 to 2016. He was in charge of 30-year-olds who didn't know what the fuck they were doing. His barracks buddy, male 25, shot himself in the head with a shotgun. My boss was just an E5 sergeant, but now the stress is eating at him. Trash bags on street corners placed around town, intentionally. My boss thinks their IUD is ready to explode at any moment. Do you have a Glock 19 in your pocket? I do, with an extra magazine. He gives me his keys to the front door and his hat. He says, "You're the boss now. You will be like my grandfather, a Vietnam cowboy, and I will go. I reckon I'll be a welder soon, searing together brass and aluminum. Be sure to lock the door behind me, and thank you for everything." All right. The next piece is called Se sont Russian Legi. I'm gonna fucking butcher this. Adam, I'm sorry. My law Latin is terrible. Se sont Russian Legi, cessat lex ipsa, and that should mean when the reason for a law ceases, the law itself ceases. Ruth Bader Ginsburg gagged, stripped, and crucified upside down. Part 1. The evil that men do lives after them. The good is oft interred with their bones. Julius Caesar, Shakespeare. Genesis, the planting of seeds. That's what everything needs, right? The old locale étal, ASL. Okay. What I'm trying to say is you have to start somewhere. Pick anywhere. How about here? Go back and read Plessy v. Ferguson. Now, use what you've learned, apply it to the real world. Yeah, just like that. Now do it again and again and again and again and again until you die. The last time I went to the bank to deposit a check, some lady, being very homeless, came into the lobby making loud noises and lugging around a foldable shopping cart. She started yelling random shit at the bank teller like, "I would like to speak to the accounting department." And goddamn, I couldn't stop laughing because what the fuck did she need the accounting department for? The woman kept clicking her tongue and flicking her earrings between breaths. Her bare feet clapped on the smooth marble floor as she waited impatiently for her turn. At one point, the bank teller looked at me. Her eyes told me to stay, just in case. I looked over at the shoeless lady, now clapping her hands at the printer. I turned back to the teller, said, "Have fun," and walked out. Intermission. The Constitution that I interpret and apply is not living, but dead, or as I prefer to call it, enduring. Antonin Scalia. A few years ago, Supreme Court Justice Antonin Scalia landed at the Memphis airport for a connecting flight. The conservative judge checked into a priority pass waiting area and sat quietly for an hour during his layover while security watched over him. One of the lounge employees handing out towels and snacks offered the bodyguard some bottled water as Scalia silently snoozed nearby. As the employee walked away, he stared intensely at sleepy Scalia. The judge's unconscious head dangled over his body like freshly killed meat on a swinging freezer hook. Maroon, rubbery, undead. The worker suddenly imagines going up to Scalia, poking a finger repeatedly into his puffy chest and yelling, "Can a corporation do this? Can a corporation do this? Can a corporation do this, you fucking textualist douchebag?" Part 2. Long after the bones and repellent mentality of the wife of the late president have been interred, the hideous memory of her will be a nightmare to the white people of the South. and her infamous Negro social equality doctrine may be paid for in blood and tears of the Southern people. Lloyd Benford, former chairman of the Memphis Board of Censors, referring to Eleanor Roosevelt's skeleton and the consequences of Negro social equality. Neox Nwang, I think that means paradise in like Old English or some shit. Anyways, sitting on a plastic stool cushion at the bar near the cola machine, hissing and pissing tubes of CO2 snake around electrical wires and balled up napkins. Hot diner coffee spills onto unsealed butter cups and tight corduroy pants. Syrup sticks your arm hair together while you play with folded up straw wrapper accordions. A young baby with haystack hair and a small brown high chair keeps yelling the word heaven, which means heaven, while also smacking a metal spoon on the table. A blue Mustang crashes through the front window of the dining area. Der Blaureiter is ejected from their steed. Their body hits the TV playing Christine and lands on the coffee machine. The rider's face smashes through the carafe. Hot coffee melts the color in their eyes. Rounded glass flushes out blue blood from their impaled scalp and forehead. Brown spit drips out of their gashed-in mouth as one final area slips out of their burning trachea. The bells ring and I start to rot in your head. Mutual addiction to emotional escalation, chemically sealed. Elizabeth V. Aldrich. Ruthless Little Things, 2021. Choral voices get louder during the come up. Familiar porn appears on the timeline. Cold hand slides under waistband. Undelete secret sex recording. No more common law. Jack off under bedsheet covers while slowing video speed down to 0.5. Feminists raped to death. Thigh shaking quivers and sense-based mind disruption. Nothing can hurt you anymore. Come down from the avalanche and settle into a doctrine of pure stare decisis. And that means precedent. All right, last piece. This one is angels jabbing metal fishing hooks into human lips. Can you feel the titanium screws in your head? No, you cannot, because you weren't beaten up by mental ward patients. Here, take my phone, watch the security footage of me being beaten and stomped on by schizos. Oh, it doesn't end there. Did you have to choose between dying from brain cancer or getting a master's degree? I did. I wanted a future for myself, but no, my body suddenly decided it wanted to develop a tumor and kill itself. Debt incurs more debt. Constantly, I am reminded that I owe so much to being alive, but what's the point, you know? What's the fucking point if I literally cannot die? Paralyzed to plaster and porcelain, making a mouth with my feet. The shower has been on for an hour now, and I've just been staring at the veins in my arms. Those scarred remnants of wrist tally marks and sexually transmitted molluscum contagiosum lesions burned off by liquid nitrogen never went away. Back home in Franklin, Pennsylvania, my friends used to shove stuff up their friends' urethra for fun. It was like that Hasbro game Operation, except we weren't removing bones or small organs. Instead, we were carefully feeding wooden toothpicks and paper clips into each other's pee holes before inevitably stabbing into a person's inner penis meat. Just replace the sharp buzzer sound with a high-pitched scream. There was absolutely no guarantee that the unlicensed doctor holding the Q-tip or thumbtack had any good aim or hand-eye coordination being in another man's meatus. But that anxiety and anticipation was part of the fun. I mean, the way I rationalize it, emperors granted gladiators a chance for triumph through blood sport, life or death competition. The paranoia of colonial America was exercised through irrational burnings and reconstructive lynchings. A military unit 731 of the Japanese Imperial Army performed their human medical experiments with a hidden effervescence. What I'm trying to say is, in our situation, whatever the hell it was, we were just do-nothing rural kids sticking stuff in our friends' wieners. Ain't nothing to it, ain't nothing wrong with it. And compared to the shit people used to do for fun, this was peaches and fucking cream. I think sounding is an exercise in trust. It's an intimate boredom that can only be understood in the moment itself. And these moments created small bonds between us. These penile drilling exercises made ordinary life seem more volatile, more determined. Other than the memories of weird penis games, I don't really think about home that much. I think it's because so many of my friends were getting cancer when they were young. Seeing my friends die made me want to leave and experience life. I got scared. You're gonna think I'm weird, I know, but I think my friends got sick because of the oil drilling history in my town. Because the city of Franklin is part of the greater oil region, which includes Oil City, Quaker State, Pennzoil, and Titusville, T. Vegas, Tittysville, otherwise known as the location where Colonel Edwin Drake first spurted rock oil in 1859. You remember the guy who shot Lincoln in the head? Yeah, old Johnny Boy and his theater money a few years later founded Dramatic Oil Company and drilled for oil in Pennsylvania in 1864 during the Civil War, specifically in Franklin. John the Dynamite Blaster and Edwin the Driller Killer fucked up and sucked up the lifeblood of Pennsylvania to find fuel for a nation killing itself. But now the kids in my town are going to die of cancer before they can be stupid teenagers sticking stuff up their friends' dick holes. Edit. Newly formed red rivers flow through Bethlehem, Pennsylvania. The world sifts through grit to find whiskey, lemon, and gold. Lying on a fold-out leather couch with sunbeams pounding against the living room television, Tank magazines litter the coffee table. The static vanishes in the wooden box when the power button is pushed. The air is sucked into the screen. 2000's Toonami schedule, Yu Yu Hakusho Demon World Tournament, 2010's Toro y Moi, Chill Wave, Feeling It All Around, Wes Anderson, Moonrise Kingdom, Neon Indian, Pyramid Cigarettes, Arcade Fire, Eating Fruit from the Bag, Microwave Snacks, Corn Mazes, American Football, Isolated Purple Mountains, Mustard Yellow Cloudy Nights, Old Guys Watching Spaghetti Western movies on library computers, Watching Donnie Darko with the Girl Who Took Your Virginity, Purple Julia E. Kimbrough Building, Vance Avenue, Puts the Gospel of Jesus Christ in Your Ass, Gustav Kaibots, Lemon and Oysters, Amsa's Yoshi Maintaining Shield Pressure, Butchered Corpses Stacked Like Sandbags, Walnut Christian Brothers Witness Immaculate Conception, Auschwitz Found Its New Outfit, Immediate Incineration, Ashes Dry Needled into bed sheets wrapped around the faces of angels, Skulls Covered by White Death, Winking faces hide in the shapes of dirty gas station floor tiles. Dreams of Memphis Milano jet skis and neon wave racers float in black computer space. The running away fantasy, the bag full of Walmart underwear and razor blades. Sitting on train tracks while you wait for your friends to find you. It was summer 2009 in Tennessee, down in a city near the mighty Mississippi, a cool summer afternoon. I was wearing my black cattleman's hat, my blue turquoise stone bolo tie, the matching blue turquoise wrist cuffs, and a friend's rattlesnake skin leather jacket. For a living, I dodged punches and fed crazy people their normal pills in a mental asylum. That night, I was just casually sitting on a moonlit rooftop with my then lover, a gal who dipped and danced in UV lights for untaxed cash and purple diamonds. That night, we were both free to mess around and drink whiskey under red light clouds. My girl pulled me closer to her side and I kissed her cheek. She reached down and, I swear on my life, this lady of lucidity actually took out her puffy red pocket stick and slung it at the big mansion directly in front of us across the street. And well, come to find out, that wasn't just any old mansion, it was Prince Mongo's castle. Woman condemns streetlights to hell. Her husband carries a sign that says, vehicles are satanic. They spread their gospel down Union Avenue until they get to the medical district. They refuse to go there. I got bit in the face by a St. Bernard at age 2. It's my first memory. My dad's daddy, Poppy from Alabama, was a racist, a weird one, because we were all Jewish, had been for quite some time, but you could say our family hated the Japanese and people of different colors. Poppy didn't even go to his brother's funeral. He was a true bastard. Although his brother was chief of security for Governor Wallace, and in case you don't know, Wallace was the guy who turned on the water hoses and let the dogs attack the blacks. He was the worst. I grew up in suburban tract housing during the 2008 housing crisis, except my house was the only house that was actually built and sold. The rest were abandoned, unfinished. Wet wooden planks and Gatorade bottles were rolling into mud pits. Yellow tape flags stood at half-mast, surrounded by construction. Constantly, I watched by bulldozers parked in the center of cul-de-sacs. I stepped on so many nails playing with my friends. We'd run through the unfinished homes playing tag and leapfrog. Whoever got hurt first would be the loser with a 3-inch puncture wound. Before I moved schools, my friends started calling me Tetanus. The last time my friends played before leaving the state, this guy threw a hammer in the air and screamed, seeing the trajectory fall towards me. Before I could react, the hammer landed on my face. The downward force split my lip open real bad. The pain I remember in great detail, but the chances of the hammer hitting my face, I couldn't. That's it.
Colton, Colton, I am never as self-conscious about the fact that I'm on camera as when you're reading, because I know I am making like 36 different faces a minute. Just like the way that your, and I've told you about this before, but the way your pieces move from like moments of real honest hilarity to like absolutely the most revolting, disgusting shit, to real pathos and sadness, to tragedy, to like incredibly, I think, insightful like moments of like socio-political stuff. Like, you should not be able to do any one of the 8 things that you do in any of these stories as well as you do, not to mention all of them. I honestly, man, I honestly don't I don't know how you do it, because the linkage is clearly there, right? When you're reading, I'm always kind of, I'm something about me is like thinking, I'm waiting for the time when I'm like, oh, okay, this is just like a collage, right? Like, I'm waiting for the time when it seems like pictures cut out of a magazine and glued together. And it's never that. There's always real conceptual, like, joints and tendons and shit holding these pieces together. Like, the conceptual through line is always there. And because it's there, all of the individual pieces, which are like vivid and often horrible on their own, come together to form something that's legitimately a lot of the time really fucking moving. I don't know, man. That of these 3, even though it's the least like ambitious in scare quotes, I think I like the first one the best, because the whole thing is like on a razor's edge between a kind of like really cruel humor and like really deep fucking sadness and ugliness, and it's balanced so precariously there, right? Because if it tipped in at any moment in either direction, the piece would be like nasty in kind of a bad way instead of being nasty in a really
Right.
good way, if that makes sense. Anyway, man, these are awesome as usual.
Dude, yeah, I appreciate you. I appreciate what you and Rudy do here. Thank you for letting me read the pieces. I'm just trying to get more fucked up, man.
You just gotta keep pushing the fucking envelope, dude.
I don't have a whole lot to add to that, but I'd say that the Ginsburg one, part 1 or whatever, that the part where after the crazy person comes in and the bank teller makes eye contact and she's like, just say, just in case, like that is like the best like communication, like desperation and just like desperate, like fucking like feeling that, I don't know, it's just indescribable, but you communicate it so well there. It's like just with that one look, it's like, fuck, shit could get real here in a second. It's
Yeah,
just
she
such
could
an
either,
awesome.
just be a weirdo clapping at a printer, or she could like fucking shoot us up. Who knows? But there was just, I don't know, just one of those real things that happened. And as it was happening, I'm like, oh, this is funny. Oh, this is too good. I gotta leave and write this right now and just.
Who cares what happens to these people in real life? I gotta get the hell out of here and write this down.
These 2 women got it. I'm just, they're fine. They'll talk it out.
So good. And I love how it ends on that cliffhanger, like, hey, what happened?
Man, thank y'all. Thank y'all so much.
Yeah, thank you, Colton. Now I think Coleman is here now. Okay, Coleman, you're up next.
Hey everybody. Hey, thanks for having me. So I'm gonna read a couple of poems. This first poem is about being raised Baptist. It's called Baptist. Wide eyes the weight of blue, tearing up to our white ankles. My mother sobs because her wings are made of pipe cleaners. When the Jesus portrait from the living room grows legs, unnails itself, and watches me sleep, I realize silence is how Christ often speaks. My mother can fly, but that means falling from a great height. We are fallen, her legs are broken, but I'm just a boy. And then this one is about when Netflix released that Dahmer series and all that discourse and shit. This is called Dahmer Has Grinder. I undress gay mannequins in the mirror. Black leather that's shadow, contorting like a mime. It's time now this twink was disposed of, but I'm tired. I can't eat you, and grandma is home with her bag of tradition. We dance to touch ourselves dying. We sleep under gutters licking pills. Our church still stands. There are no such things as accidents. My bio says softness makes me sick. You're sorry we wake without names. And this last one is called The Fuck Boy. Feeding longing to twinks, you are preserved in amber. Memory has canyons. You smile from a ledge, wiping cum across your lips, running out that dorm room. Twinks have invisible wounds. You finger those twinks, motioning like, come closer. And that's all. Thanks a lot, y'all.
Coleman, those were fantastic as usual. Coleman, oh my gosh, the first one, the surreal religious imagery is, oh my gosh, like so effective. And I love the way though that like it doesn't get completely consumed by the surreal, right? It's very anchored in like a very naturalistic kind of childhood religious experience. Like it never feels like it enters some airy world detached from like the realities of a kid growing up, like, you know, growing up in what seems like a rural area or whatever, and growing up and being raised religious. But it's so full of these like, oh, the pipe cleaners line. It's so full of these beautiful little lines. All three of these poems are full of beautiful little lines. And yet each and every one of them is fucking terrifying. Like, I don't know how you manage to write shit that's so gorgeous and so like insidious at the same time, Coleman. But as usual, these rocked. Thank you, man.
Thanks a lot. Yeah, I really appreciate that. And thanks for listening, y'all.
Yeah, thank you. Up next, is Josh with us yet? No? Okay. Then, and certainly Stu, wait, let me just check. Is Stu with us? Oh, this is going to be a running joke. I'm going to keep putting Stu on the docket every week and inviting him until he actually shows up. So Sam's up next.
Hello?
Hey, Sam, how's it going?
Pretty good. A little drunk. But
You're a little far from the mic, it sounds like.
hello?
Okay, I think so. Yeah, I'll let you know if it starts to sound a little iffy.
All right, this is some auto fiction I started yesterday. I always arrive to work early, or as early as I can. It is the best way I know to seem productive without actually being productive. I walk into the lab and fill the cardboard waste containers, which is a task that all team members and scientists find very annoying. And by doing this, I make an immediately tangible contribution to workflow. Sometimes, another associate, Nicholas, arrives earlier than I.
Sam,
He's already on. What
I
up?
hate to interrupt you, but you're cutting in and out a lot. Or is your phone? It sounds like you'll get quiet and then you'll get loud. You'll get quiet and then you'll get loud. Is it, is your
Oh, hang on.
phone
Let me switch my,
moving?
let me,
Oh, yeah,
let me
okay.
switch my earbuds out.
Okay, okay. I didn't want to interrupt you too early because I was trying to figure out if maybe it was part of a bit that you were doing. Are you there, Sam? If you're talking now, we can't hear you, but I'm not sure if you're trying to talk or if you're still adjusting your, oh, he's gone. Sam, Gigi says Sam is doing performance art. You know, it's always hard to tell with Sam too. I'll give him a minute to get back in here because, yeah, let's see here. Okay, Sam, let's see how this goes.
Howdy.
Hey, Sam, let's see how it goes now.
I always arrive to work early or as early as I can. Productive without actually being productive. I walk up and
Nope.
unfold the card.
I
No?
hate to interrupt you, Sam. It's the same exact thing. I'm not sure what's going on, but you'll be crystal clear and then you'll get really quiet and muffled. Then you'll be crystal clear and then you'll get quiet and muffled again. It sounds almost like the mic is
This
moving
better?
away from your face. Yes. Say a little more.
Sounds good.
All right. I always arrive to work early or as early as I can. It is the best way I know to seem productive without actually being productive. I walk into the lab and unfold the cardboard waste containers, which is a task that all team members and scientists find very annoying. And by doing this, I make an immediately tangible contribution to workflow. Sometimes another associate, Nicholas, arrives earlier than I and is already unfolding the cardboard waste containers when I arrive. And as I walk past him unfolding the cardboard waste containers, I am filled with dread at the prospect that I might be fired. For Nicholas has just proven this to all, and to me, that I am unnecessary. But when that does not happen, after grabbing my samples and reagents, I dutifully walk into the back hallway and grab the cardboard box full of folded cardboard waste containers and efficiently unfold them so that all associates and scientists might have a cardboard waste container ready to hand. And as they grab it, think to themselves, I sure am glad I did not have to go to the back hallway and grab a folded cardboard waste container, unfold it, put the bag in, tape the bottom, and then tape the lid open. I sure am glad that Sam is my coworker and arrives early and immediately goes to the back hallway and grabs the cardboard box full of folded cardboard waste containers, unfolds them, tapes the bottom, puts the bag in, then unfolds the lid, tapes the bottom, puts the bag in, then unfolds the lid, then places the lid atop the cardboard waste container, and then finally tapes the lid open for all of us. Though, as I grab this ready-to-hand cardboard waste container, lovingly crafted by Sam, I feel as though he made it specifically for me. He is necessary and deserves a raise. When I walk into the lab and Nicholas is already in the middle of this task, that is, when Nicholas has already gone to the back hallway and has already grabbed the cardboard box full of cardboard waste containers and has already unfolded them, has already applied duct tape to the bottom of the cardboard waste containers, has already put the bag inside of the cardboard waste container, has already unfolded the lid, and is placing the lid atop the cardboard waste container and is taping the lid open, I am filled with feelings of dread and panic. For it is my contribution to the team that is being stolen from me, not Nicholas. I am the one who should have already grabbed the cardboard box full of cardboard waste containers, who should have already unfolded them, who should have already applied duct tape to the bottom of the cardboard waste containers, who should have already put the bag inside of the cardboard waste container, who should have already unfolded the lid, who should be placing the lids atop the cardboard waste containers, who should be taping the lids open as Nicholas walks in. And it is he who should be filled with feelings of dread, panic, and rage as he walks into the lab and he witnesses me performing the final steps to this utmost necessary task. This is not to say that Nicholas would be fired, as Nicholas has done much more than I to verify his presence. To verify that his presence is a necessity in the eyes of several very important clients. It is more to say that Nicholas ought to allow me, little me, unimportant Sam, to attend to useful little tasks to prove my worth, as he, Nicholas, has nothing left to prove. Nicholas has so little left to prove that, if he were fired, I would quit that day, immediately, when I heard about it, but not before giving our global manager a stern talking to. Why would you fire Nicholas? I'd ask. Don't you know Nicholas is a very important team member with a very important client whose project, which was totally fucked when I got hired, totally foobar, fucked up beyond all reason, a project where every ball capable of being held was dropped, a project where the person in charge stopped responding to their emails because she disliked the vibes of the client. Nicholas picked every ball up at once. You are ridding yourself of Nicholas and his necessary usefulness, and also me at the same time. Obviously, it wouldn't be a great loss to the team to lose me, as my main contribution is my occasionally arriving early and then dutifully walking into the back hallway and grabbing the cardboard box full of folded cardboard waste containers and efficiently unfolding them so that all associates and scientists might have a cardboard waste container ready to hand, and as they grab it, think, I sure am glad that I did not have to go back to the back hallway and grab the folded cardboard waste container box, unfold it, put the bag in, tape the bottom, then tape the lid open. I sure am glad that Sam is my coworker and arrives early and immediately goes to the back hallway and grabs the cardboard box full of cardboard waste containers and unfolds them, tapes the bottom, puts the bag in, then unfolds the lids, then places those lids atop the cardboard waste container, and then finally tapes the lid open for all of us. Though, as I grab this ready to hand cardboard waste container, lovingly crafted by Sam, I feel as though he made it specifically for me. Obviously, I would be no great loss. But Nicholas? That's simply incompetent management. And incompetent management obviously deserves a stern talking to. 3. I apologize. I tend to imagine scenarios where I am justifiably angry, specifically when I have been stood up for getting beers with a friend. It's a fun thing, being righteously angry. I enjoy it a lot. It might be my favorite emotion. To be wronged feels terrible, but to be righteously angry at having been wronged is such a joy that I can't help but be forgiving to anyone that wrongs me. This is to the side as I was stood up by my close friend Alex, one of my closest friends. I thought to myself, this Friday night, December 16th, 2022, I ought to ask my good, very close friend Alex if he'd like to join me for a beer. Perhaps we can discuss the new Cormac McCarthy I've been reading, or the insane woman he impregnated in the bathroom of La Petite Dance Club at 3 a.m., or the husband of that insane woman who is a police officer who could murder him without being charged. But no, Alex stood me up, as Alex is on a date with a beautiful woman who is always inviting me out for things. Alex's woman is so nice, so compassionate. He'd be an absolute fool to hang out with me to the detriment of hanging out with her and of being nice to her, that I would stop talking to him, who I've known for nearly 14 years. I would simply quit talking to him if he ditched her for me. He would hear mum from me if he asked me to get beers on a Friday night, this Friday night, December 16th, 2022. If he abandoned her, a very nice girl, a very nice, good-looking and kind-hearted woman who is so helpful to Alex, I would think he had lost his mind. But luckily for me, Alex is virtuous, and he knows that it is far more important to spend this Friday evening, December 16th, 2022, with a beautiful, kind girlfriend than with a beautiful and kind friend. Though he stood me up. The nerve required to stand up with one of your closest friends for going out for beers for a woman. To not get shit-faced on a Friday night. I certainly gave him a wordful. Alex, I said, this is the gayest thing you possibly could have said, I said. Alex, I said, that was gayer than 9 dudes fucking infinity dudes, I said. Alex, had you sucked my dick to completion, then kissed me on the mouth after timidly saying no homo whilst giggling, that would have still have been substantially less gay than you hanging out with your girlfriend instead of me, by about 10 magnitudes. Alex, I said, this is gayer than the fucking Pride Parade. Alex, I said, this is gayer than the fucking Pride Parade orgy. You hanging out with your girl instead of me is more homosexual than the AIDS virus that we both know was specifically crafted by the CIA to kill homosexuals. Alex, you ditching me for Kathy is gayer than kissing your dad. Alex, you hanging out with Kathy instead of me is gayer than RuPaul's Drag Race, which is to say, queerer, as obviously both of us understand that queer and gay are not to be conflated, though those categories oftentimes overlap when encountering those categories in the particular. Alex, this is This you hanging out with Kathy instead of me situation is scarier than being able to understand the difference between the categories of queer and gay. Alex, you hanging out with Kathy instead of me makes me want to check and make sure you're taking PrEP. You hanging out with Kathy instead of me makes me want to check and make sure you're taking PrEP. That's how gay the situation is. I cannot believe you betrayed me like this. You fucking fruit, is what I said in so many words. Regardless, anyways, I'd like to do things that are more interesting than this. And
Sam. I oh my,
God, I'm at the chair.
oh, here we go. Sam, I do not. Oh my God. This is fucking hilarious. This is a hilarious piece, Sam. Obviously, the diatribe at the end here is fucking hilarious. The sheer number of things that him hanging out with his girlfriend is gayer than. But what I really loved was the way the first 2/3 of this were structured. The like hypnotic way you keep going back to that one task that you do in the office. And what I love about that is not only that it was just fucking hilarious, like the way the joke just keeps going back and getting embellished upon and embellished upon. That's something you do often and do very, very well in your writing. But more than that, more than just how fucking funny it was, it's the way it like perfectly mimics the way that like the human mind works at work, works when you're in this dreary office environment. Because I know my brain did that. Like I would get when I had an office job, I would get fixated on the little fucking things I did and be like and rationalize it, right? Like, oh yeah, this makes me indispensable,
I'm not.
right?
It's just like always, I'm not good enough. Oh shit, I should do these things.
Yeah, do these
I'm not as good as this guy. I'm not as good as the next guy.
Yeah, but don't worry, I could do this one task, right? I can do this one incredibly mundane task, and surely this must be essential. And it's I don't know, Sam, this is a beautiful piece of writing. It really is. Thank you, man. Is Josh Sherman with us yet? If not, so I have left on the docket Josh and Keith and Rudy, and Keith only wanted to read his piece after Josh read his piece. So Rudy, I know you wanted to go last, but are you okay with us jumping ahead to you now?
No, that's fine because I'm not gonna do the game thing tonight. I don't have my game ready yet. So.
Oh, okay, cool.
Yep, cool. So I'm gonna read a piece. Let me look at here if I can. I'll put it in the thing. You can link it because I'm on like 2 different computers here. Oh, the fucking bullshit. It's a piece we published on Misery Tourism. I'm reading this in solidarity with Brandon's bug. Well, kind of bugs. I guess Turkivores are kind of like bugs, but his fantasy underground bug killing piece. And I put it in the document. I don't actually have access to that document on here. I don't know if you do or not.
I do. Just 1 second. I'll drop it in the chat.
Cool. I'm gonna make the post here.
Okay, there you go. It's in the chat.
Just a second here. I'm posting the link here on the Twitter. Okay. So this one is this is some homework that I found in a gutter. it's also some fantasy shit. Cool. This is called The Ecology of the Muckrakers. So basically, just a little background. This is a homework assignment, like some found homework shit. Yeah, basically, it's found homework from a fantasy world. The Ecology of Muckrakers. In this report, I'll talk about what muckrakers is and how they affect the community. Since this is a science report, I'll provide evidence to back up my claims about stuff. The muckraker is a very dangerous but majestic animal. You have probably seen one since every city has one. I know I have. A lot of people say the muckraker is both really friendly and grimy, depending on the person. This report will be 3.5 pages type double space. So I should start by saying what the muckraker is in better detail. Every city has a muckraker. This one does too. Ours' name is Upskirt Sinclair. He big as fuck. He king nigga of this place and don't let no other muckers step to his shit. His main nest is by the south gate to Temperance where the whites live. He don't come out much from there except to go to another crib. And like a nigga who be ballin', taking names, doing big money shit, he got a few homes. Holy shit, somebody just shared this. Cool. He is highly visible. For example, I live in Brandenburg Towers, which is at the intersection of hell and poverty, and I can see him most times. He's so big that when he moves, the ground shakes a little bit, but he don't move much. I'm sure you know what a muckraker look like already, so I won't waste much time with that. But for those who don't, I will describe one. If you ever seen a fine-ass female, you know she's all legs and ass. The same for muckrakers, except I'm not trying to say that this sounds sick. I just want to give you a comparison. Their ass end is covered in hair that is thick. It's pretty much like silky and smooth. You might say a muckraker has that good hair. On the top of the ass end is its markings, which look like a big bell. Just like a big black widow got markings on her ass, this animal got the bell. And just like the widow, this motherfucker got one job: to kill niggas. You might say that muckrakers is good at catching prey, and that's real talk, because niggas gotta eat. When Sinclair awake, you know some poor soul is gonna get got. You can tell he up because he bling real bright and it lights up the whole hood. One of the principles of science is locomotion. Just like the song, it makes people move. The muckraker has legs, like I already said, but it's lazy, so it don't walk much. It mostly waits for niggas to come to it, and they do because they stupid as fuck. Every nigga in this city want to fight Sinclair. I know I do, but enough about me. You can go down to the docks at Red Hook and see all kinds of shit. Get watches, wares, fake leather that look real, anything you want. But mostly you see fools up there who is ready to ride out in bando boats, strapped up and finna let off. They leave from there and go across the moat and land near uptown Temperance. If you hunt in Sinclair, this is what you do because you can get around behind his ass end and he can't see you. You also get to walk through the saltine parts of town once you get off the boat. And you could see some nice white girls, which is pretty cool. When you get in close, though, you better approach with caution. If he awake and he see you, it's all she wrote because that motherfucker got reflexes on him. But Sinclair is old, probably older than most people's grams, and his visions is starting to go. One eye totally gone from that nigga Chippy Chinker shouted out. If you finna get in his blind spot, come from the Hampton Tunnel side. If you as a cowboy nigga and want to act up for the white girls, take the long way around and get killed. Also, some don't know that you shouldn't touch the web. Look, the web Sinclair's crib. You know that old Earth, the old one, what you hang out at her place when you laying low from the cops or when it's a clear night. You know how she keep all them statues and pictures of Jesus in her foyer and is like, y'all can come in and have mushroom tarts if you want to, but don't touch my Jesus. You know damn well you better not touch anything in that foyer. It's like that with Sinclair's webs, seriously. boy, you touch that and he'll be upside your head in a minute. Except unlike the old lady, you dead afterwards. Stupid ass nigga. My advice, try to hit him from the underside, near where his Versace is at. There's a hole you can shoot in easy if you a dead eye. That reminds me, because science is about identifying parts and shit. The Versace is the term for the part of the muckraker that makes the sticky icky, the web. It is known as the Versace because people dress it in its threads. Like, if you can find a crib where Sinclair hasn't been for a while and you think he might not come back soon, you can cut that shit up and take it to a tailor and get a fresh suit made. See, Mr. Gregory, science can teach you about being fly too. Anyway, I see it on the rubric that we have to talk about muckraker diet and excretion. So I'll talk about that. The muckraker's dookie is called statistics. If you a dumb nigger and don't know what statistics is, it's basically a real fat dookie that walks around screaming all kinds of shit. The muckraker eats niggers, but when it goes to the bathroom, it makes statistics. Statistics walk around the city and yell things real loud. They done some dumb shit, keeping niggas awake all night yelling. For example, here are some things that statistics say. 93% of all those incarcerated in Pendant Correctional Facility are black males. 80% of all serial killers are white. 43% of all black children below the age of 10 are illiterate. Everything statistics say comes true because their words are magic. They hard to kill because niggas' bullets and swords go right through them. They only stop running around and talking shit when it's time for the muckraker to take another dump. And that ain't every day. There's some word for when they stop moving, but I don't fucking remember it. Statistics magic is some real weird and sometimes dumb shit. For example, my friend Jaquan used to be white. I didn't know him before he was black though. He would come down from the Hamptons, hang with his upstreet crew, which is a bunch of white deadheads who come to the 618 for a good time and to feel like they niggas for a little while. He come here with that upstreet dank and had hell of it on him when he got pulled over in his T-Bird. Because he was white, they put him and all the other stoners he come with in the drunk tank at Pendant and let them chill. But them niggas didn't know that the muckraker had taken an especially big dookie that morning. That night it ran through the streets saying shit like, a racial divide? 99% of those incarcerated at Pendant Correctional Facility are black males. Now that nigga black as me. I heard he come with some females too, and they all Johnsoned up at this point in time. He my boy though. Anyway, I learned a lot about muckrakers writing this report, and I hope you did too. To wrap it up, I want to say that muckrakers are an important part of the city's ecology. They help by making peeps mix it up a little bit, feel me? Like if it wasn't for Sinclair, I wouldn't be friends with Jaquan. And also, they mostly eat niggas who is weak pussy ass niggas. And fuck them.
Man. I have not read this in fucking years. When was this published? This was way back, 2017.
It's like 2017 or some shit.
I forgot how good this was. I forgot. Man, this is really, as a piece of like fucking world building, this is incredible because at no point does it feel like you're reading like a setting document, right? At no point does it feel like you're reading a piece of world building. It's so like the like faux term paper format is so perfect for this, so perfect. And oh my god, I love the Versace thing too, the play on words there. And I love the way it comes into the piece, because when the first time it's used, and because this piece is filled with so many misspellings and typos and neologisms and shit, you're like, okay, what word is he trying to say there, right? When actually, like, it's this elaborate fucking this elaborate slang, right? And once it's explained, it makes perfect fucking sense. But yeah, oh man, and the concept here of like the backward way, the like backwards fantasy way it approaches statistics, where statistics make reality instead of being reflective of reality, right? And having that be within the term paper format too, I think is a little brilliant, because that's kind of how, man, that's kind of the way you view the world when you're writing some shitty paper for school that you don't want to write, right? It's like, well, this shit must be true because it's in the textbook, right? And I want to find a way to regurgitate the textbook. So like the textbook makes reality, right? The text that you have to produce too creates reality, as opposed to like what the teacher in theory wants you to do, which is look at reality and write a piece
You probably
reflective.
shouldn't go down that.
One fish, two fish.
One fish, two fish.
Red
No fish
one-
now.
yeah.
I think he got impatient. Anyway, man, this is just a really funny, brilliant
Thanks.
piece, and I'm glad you brought it back, because I forgot how good it is. All right. Shit. Do we have Josh Sherman in the house yet or not?
Can I read a poem?
Yeah, read a fucking poem, Sam. And if anyone has a piece that they want to read, that they were saving for the open mic or whatever, you can just say so in the chat, and we will move on. Okay, Unity. Okay, Sam, floor is yours.
Oh, okay.
I read this in June, but this poem is called When It's Warm Out.
I was trying to feel bad.
For mosquitoes. There are no mosquitoes in spring. They're still tentative, waiting out of instinct to spawn.
Fearful of cold snaps that evaporate.
Whole generations.
Sam, I hate to tell
What
you
up?
this, but your mic is
God
doing
damn
it
it.
again.
God damn
Damn
it.
it. Hang
I have
on.
no
Give me
idea.
one-
You had it perfect. Your whole story went through perfectly, but it's acting up again.
Is that better?
Yeah, beautiful.
God damn it. All right. This poem's called When It's Warm Out. There are no mosquitoes in spring. They're still tentative, waiting out of instinct to spawn, fearful of cold snaps that evaporate whole generations. Storms precipitate from nothing and make noises like they want to shatter my bedroom window, sounding like a trash can thrown against the wall just downstairs. No dam breaks. Too much water falls on an inclined plane and destroys every photograph in everyone's basements. Blood leaks when I slap a mosquito on my arm, and filth from the heat and air coats into a thin film when I'm outside for more than 2 minutes at a time. Violated by a tick, after walking through tall grass, I slowly heat a lighter to press against it and then carefully peel it away. That's it.
Sam, my God. First of all, what like tonal whiplash from the other piece that you wrote. But man, this is so good. Like, this is unlike anything I think that you've read at Misery Tourism before. And the way that you get at like the frailty of life in this poem, like that line about the cold snaps that evaporate, excuse me, I'm tongue-tied, whole generations, man, like, I don't know, this is just like, I
That's
know
how it works, though.
it
That's
is, yeah.
That's what happens to mosquitoes.
I mean,
They're fucked.
I think of like, we had a warm week a couple weeks ago here, which is rare in November. We had like a week where it got up into the 50s or 60s or something, and all the ladybugs hatched out. And for a second, I was like, well, what the fuck? Like, what happens now? And I'm like, oh, I guess they just die when it gets cold. I get like an entire generation of
That's all
ladybugs.
that's all that happens to mosquitoes and ticks when it gets cold outside. They just all die.
Yeah.
It's
And
fucking sad.
that's so insane to think about, like that on some level that like the conditions of your life are dictated by your birth, right? Like there were some poor
Yeah,
fuckers who were like
the
born in
contingencies
430
dictate
BC.
your.
Yeah. Sorry. Yeah, but
Sorry,
like
go on.
no, I mean you get born in a year that just happens to be like at the beginning of a 10-year famine or something in like 430 AD, and your whole life is shaped like that, right? These moments in history, like we're kind of like coddled and shit now in the first world, but like I mean this poem in its brevity like gets so perfectly at like just how fragile life is and just how much of it is dictated by circumstance. Anyway, it's great, Sam. Sorry I interrupted you there. What were you going to say?
Yeah. I forgot.
Damn, I'm sorry, man.
Anyway, thank you. Though.
Yeah, thanks, man.
Yes.
Great poem. Unity is up next.
Okay, hey guys, can you hear me?
Perfectly.
Okay, I'm going to give you a link to this. And like I said, it's fairly long, so it's a short story. So either, settle in or hit that mute button and go get a snack. Okay, this story is called The Other Nicholas. Nicholas flipped open his MacBook Pro. He plugged a USB microphone into one USB jack and a $20 ring light he'd purchased from Amazon into the other. Then he placed the laptop on the middle rung of the wooden ladder nailed to the foot of his bed. With the microphone and ring light attached, Nicholas found he could balance the laptop on the ladder, with the two accessories acting as counterweights. Leaving the laptop balanced on the rung, he wheeled his desk chair into the corner of the room and positioned it in front of the bookshelf facing the open laptop. He sat down in the chair and switched on the ring light. He fiddled with the position of the camera and the light, then rearranged some of the books on the shelf behind him. When everything was to his liking, he stood up, banging the top of his head on the potted philodendron hanging from a metal hook haphazardly screwed into the window frame, and raced upstairs to make coffee. Nicholas had only recently reintroduced coffee into his diet, having temporarily eliminated almost all foods besides liver, cod, beef, raw honey, berries, cruciferous vegetables, and tea. Nicholas hoped that by doing this, he'd be able to reduce his intestinal inflammation, restore his gut flora to a healthy balance, and cure himself of an unspecified mystery illness that had all but stopped him in his tracks following a tooth infection in the last months of 2019. The infection had been so bad that during its acute phase, Nicholas had barely even been able to open his mouth. It was the worst pain he'd ever felt. Searing, shocking pain that shot down both sides of his neck and all the way up into his eyeballs and brain. Nicholas had made an emergency appointment to see his dentist, who prescribed a 10-day course of antibiotics and referred Nicholas to an oral surgeon. "This is the last referral I'm giving you," the dentist said as she angrily filled out the referral form. Months earlier, this same dentist had recommended Nicholas have 4 of his bottom molars extracted due to extensive irreparable decay. But Nicholas had ignored the dentist's advice, as he'd ignored all advice about his dental health for the better part of a decade. And now I'm paying the price, he thought glumly at the time. I guess this is what my parents were always warning me about. Both of Nicholas's parents had had significant dental problems and for years had been nagging Nicholas constantly to go to the dentist and have his teeth taken care of. But he'd never heeded their warnings. And now here he was, with 4 bottom molars so full of cavities that there was no longer any hope to salvage them, not even with root canals. And unfortunately, The teeth would turn out to be the least of his problems. Within a day of beginning antibiotics, the swelling in his face had gone down, and Nicholas found himself able to eat and drink and go about his life more or less as usual. But then, at his hip-hop dance class several days later, something exceedingly strange had occurred. The class had been warming up, performing a series of squats, kicks, crab walks, and other exercises set to music. Nicholas was on his hands and feet, crab walking across the dance studio, when he began to feel excruciatingly tired. His face burned red hot, and the muscles in his arms and legs began to quiver. At the same time, he suddenly realized that his bladder was full, almost to bursting. I'm going to piss myself, he thought. Either that or explode. He sprang to his feet and wobbled dizzily to the restroom, then stood over the toilet for a full minute as a powerful stream of crystal clear, colorless urine exploded out of his urethra and into the bowl. When he was finished, he flushed, pulled up his shorts, and shakily rejoined the group. I have overtaxed myself, he thought. I am pushing myself too hard. He resolved to continue the exercises at a slower pace, not worrying about whether he was keeping up with the instructor or the rest of the students in the class. But even at a reduced pace, within minutes, Nicholas felt his muscles begin to falter. His heart pounded, and he was out of breath. 5 minutes later, his bladder was full again. He ducked into the restroom and once again let loose a mighty cascade of clear, colorless urine. When the urination felt complete, Nicholas squeezed his bladder and the muscles in his pelvic floor, pushing every drop of urine from his body. That's all the pee, he thought. There can't possibly be any more. Within 10 minutes, however, Nicholas's bladder was full yet again. By this point, Nicholas thought the other students in the class must have begun to notice his frequent bathroom trips. The students had divided into two lines and were rehearsing the dance they would perform at the biannual dance concert held at the local high school. Nicholas was in the middle of one of these lines, far from the restroom. Slowly, without changing his facial expression, Nicholas began to dance backwards, out of his position in line, heading in the direction of the restroom. Thankfully, most of the other students were too engrossed in their own dancing, or too polite to notice Nicholas drifting out of his position in line. As subtly as he could, he danced into the restroom and exhaled deeply as he began to urinate once more. From that point on, Nicholas urinated upwards of 25 times a day, sometimes as many as 40 or 50. His urine was uniformly clear and colorless, except for the first urination of the day, when it took on a slight pale yellow hue. If he severely limited his water intake, he could get the total number of urinations down to 15 or 20, but on those days he felt dehydrated, sluggish, and fatigued. In fact, Nicholas felt sluggish and fatigued every day, even on days where he drank enough water to compensate for the water lost to his many urinations. The fatigue was so debilitating that Nicholas was no longer able to take his daily jogs, or go to his hip-hop dance class, or the hot yoga classes he'd attended religiously ever since giving up drugs and alcohol several years before. The fatigue was bad enough, too, that he'd had to quit his part-time job at a small beeswax candle factory 3 towns over, and cancel his registration for the yoga teacher training course he'd been planning to attend that summer. We'll have to check your urine osmolality, Nicholas's doctor had said, after Nicholas dutifully described his symptoms, as well as your total urine output. Nicholas left the doctor's office that day with 2 plastic 2-liter containers, and by the morning of the next was obliged to return to the hospital laboratory to request a third, having filled the first 2 all the way to the brim with pale, achromatic urine. Test results indicated a diagnosis of partial neurogenic diabetes insipidus, a deficiency of the hormone arginine vasopressin, which controls urine concentration and retention of water in the blood. Nicholas learned that partial neurogenic diabetes insipidus is typically caused by lesions on the pituitary gland, but after 2 MRI scans, no such lesions were discovered. A specialist prescribed desmopressin, a synthetic version of arginine vasopressin, which, when Nicholas took it, had little to no effect on his symptoms. Have you tried any alternative medicine? Nicholas's doctor asked during one of their appointments. There's this doctor I follow on TikTok. Here, let me show you. Nicholas's doctor wheeled his desk chair over to Nicholas and pulled an iPhone out of the pocket of his lab coat. He held the phone up to Nicholas's face, and Nicholas watched as a young, ample-breasted Asian woman in a bikini emerged from a swimming pool holding a can of alcoholic seltzer. Water dripped down the woman's torso and face as she flashed a sultry grin and sipped the drink. "Hey guys," she said, "it's Dr. Amiko. Did you know that White Claw only has 100 calories per can? That's less than a glass of wine." "Hold on," said Nicholas's doctor. "She has other videos too, where she talks about hormones and stuff." Nicholas watched as the doctor scrolled TikTok. As he waited, Nicholas gazed at the doctor's round, fat body. He was breathing heavily, still out of breath from having wheeled his chair across the room. Who does this guy think he is, giving me advice about my health? Nicholas thought fatphobically. He then scolded himself mentally for making such an offensive, insensitive remark, even if only to himself. Anyway, the doctor said, putting his phone back in his lab coat pocket. She offers consultations through her website. He stood up, offering Nicholas his hand. It's worth a try, at least. Nicholas hadn't consulted the sexy doctor, but he had, over the course of the next 3 years, tried many forms of non-allopathic medicine, including supplements, Reiki, medical Qigong, reconnective healing, acupuncture, chiropractics, shamanic healing, meditation and self-healing, traditional Chinese medicine, and various dietary and nutritional interventions. On the recommendation of a shamanic healer, he'd stopped taking the antiviral medication he'd been prescribed to treat his HIV. He'd even purchased a device that purported to send electric pulses through the skin and into the blood, cleansing it of toxins, fungi, and viruses. Most of all, Nicholas had prayed. But after almost 3 years and countless unhelpful interventions, a terrible thing had begun to happen. Nicholas, the perpetual optimist, had begun to give up hope. Nicholas unzipped the foil coffee bag, poured beans into the grinder, and turned on the kettle. He unfolded a coffee filter and fitted it into the plastic dripper resting atop his favorite mug, a half-size ceramic one decorated with a folksy picture of a wood duck. The rich, earthy smell of coffee filled his nostrils as he ground the beans and spooned them into the filter. He'd been hesitant to add coffee back into his diet, worried that its acidity might produce inflammation or acne, but had recently read on the Ray Peat forum that coffee had nutrient-like properties, and that Ray Peat himself had recommended caffeine as a health supplement. This information, coupled with his prior knowledge that coffee contained hardly any harmful PUFAs, reassured Nicholas that he could once again begin enjoying his morning cup, as well as the occasional afternoon pick-me-up. Once he had his cup of freshly brewed black Java in hand, Nicholas hurried back down the stairs to his basement quarters, spilling the coffee slightly as he crossed the threshold and, banging his head against the philodendron a second time, took his seat. "Ow," he muttered. He checked the clock on his computer screen. 4:06 p.m. 6 minutes late. He opened a new tab in Chrome and logged into Twitter, where several messages awaited him. The messages were from Thomas, one of Nicholas's mutuals. Thomas wished to interview Nicholas for his literary podcast, and the two had agreed on 4 p.m. that day, December 4th, for Thomas to conduct the interview. The podcast was minor, and Nicholas hadn't listened to any of the episodes, but he liked Thomas and was interested to hear the types of questions he would ask. At the very least, Nicholas thought it would allow him to practice speaking extemporaneously about his work, a skill he wished to cultivate. "Son of a bitch," said Thomas's first message. "You coming?" said the second, followed by a Google Meetup link. Nicholas clicked the link, and soon a box popped up on his screen with Thomas in it. Nicholas watched as Thomas popped a pill into his mouth and swallowed it dry. "What was that?" Nicholas said. "Adderall," Thomas said. "Did you know I almost blocked you and everyone involved with the Calamity Manual?" "Really?" said Nicholas. "Why?" "Because you wrote a story with the N-word in it," Thomas exclaimed. "And I don't agree with everything about the Calamity Manual either. It's just a difference of opinion." Said Nicholas. And I don't want to talk about it, said Thomas. Okay, said Nicholas, sipping his coffee discomfitedly. He had written a story containing the N-word, months earlier in February of that year. While surfing Twitter, he'd seen a post by Sometimes Magazine, one of the trendiest online publications, advertising a writing contest, the theme of which had been non-traditional love stories. Well, Nicholas had thought, I certainly have a lot of those. In a fit of inspiration, Nicholas dashed off Internet Boyfriend, a 2,000-word nonfiction essay about his online relationship with Dirk, a 21-year-old gay Nazi from the Netherlands. The relationship had started when Nicholas was in the midst of a months-long psychotic break and had messaged Dirk via Instagram after Dirk followed Nicholas and liked some of his posts. At the time, Nicholas hadn't minded Dirk's frequent racist white supremacist comments or his many offensive jokes about women and Jews. Looking back, Nicholas felt somewhat ashamed to have internet dated Dirk, but rationalized the relationship by chalking it up to his own mental illness. Nicholas believed that during his psychotic break, he'd been possessed by some kind of mischievous trickster spirit from another dimension, a spirit who ignored or perhaps even intentionally flounced conventional standards of social intercourse, including moral and ethical behavioral norms. The trickster spirit, as Nicholas, was attracted to Dirk because Dirk was fearless and outrageous and didn't care what people thought of him. It found in Dirk a kindred soul, a twin flame, someone who got off on the frisson produced in conflicts between various tribes of humans, who laughed at the ludicrous self-seriousness of men. And besides, apart from Dirk, Nicholas had no other friends at the time. It is a well-established fact that no one wants to hang out with a psycho in the middle of a breakdown. But Dirk showed Nicholas true kindness, love even, which had to count for something, Nicholas believed. In order to add verisimilitude to his essay, Nicholas included several DMs and text message exchanges verbatim, including ones where Dirk had used inappropriate and obscene language, like the N-word. It made no sense to censor these comments, Nicholas reasoned, because they were the actual words Dirk had spoken. Nicholas felt that as an artist, it was his responsibility to deal in unvarnished truths. His philosophy regarding immoral language was the same as the one Charlotte Bronte outlined in the 1850 preface to the new edition of her recently deceased sister Emily's then scandalous novel, Wuthering Heights. In her preface, Charlotte Bronte wrote, "A large class of readers will suffer greatly from the introduction into the pages of this work, of words printed with all their letters, which it has become the custom to represent by the initial and final letter only, a blank line filling the interval. I may as well say at once that for this circumstance it is out of my power to apologize, deeming it myself a rational plan to write words at full length. The practice of hinting by single letters those expletives with which profane and violent persons are wont to garnish their discourse strikes me as a proceeding which, however well meant, is weak and futile. I cannot tell what good it does, what feeling it spares, what horror it conceals." Like Charlotte Bronte, Nicholas believed it a rational plan to write words at full length. He knew that Dirk, like Emily Bronte's fictional Heathcliff, was a profane and violent person, wont to garnish his discourse with all manner of expletives. But Nicholas believed in his heart of hearts that no one was hiding anything by concealing the letters of certain words behind dashes. To utter the phrase the N-word was the same, he felt, as uttering the actual N-word itself. It transmitted the same meaning and even inscribed identical sounds into the mind of the listener. He also believed that words placed under societal taboos would only increase in power the more they were prohibited. While he personally found the N-word offensive and repugnant, he believed that there were many reasonable aesthetic justifications for its use in literature and art. Art must reflect the reality of life, he believed, including the darkest parts of it. In the case of his essay, Nicholas thought it was important to provide unedited examples of Dirk's racist speech, even if such language provoked a visceral reaction from readers. Literature should express all the grace, beauty, and horror of life on earth, reasoned Nicholas. To attempt to conceal the horror would condescend to readers and cheapen the art. Nicholas had been writing and publishing stories online for more than a year and had taken pains to surround himself with people who shared his free speech absolutism and other philosophies about literature and art. Nevertheless, the publication of Internet Boyfriend caused a ripple of controversy to spread through the cyber writing community. Following reader complaints, the editors of Sometimes pulled the story from their website. A day later, it was republished at the Calamity Manual, another internet magazine specializing in transgressive and outsider literature. Nicholas's tweet promoting the story received hundreds of likes and retweets, and the editors of the Calamity Manual wrote to Nicholas to inform him that the story had been viewed over 500 times in its first day of publication, an impressive total in the world of small, niche online presses. The controversy was mentioned on several right-wing podcasts, which Nicholas felt nervous about. He wasn't sure he wanted to be associated with the so-called alt-right, but what could he do? It was out of his hands. The story was out in the world, to be read and judged by the public. Oh well, he thought, no press is bad press, I suppose. Nicholas sometimes wondered if he was going down a dark path. He had always considered himself a progressive, liberal-minded person. Before his symptoms began, Nicholas had been on a path of healing, spirituality, yoga, and light. Now, he was often grumpy and crotchety. Many days, he hardly even left bed. Making a simple trip to the grocery store could lead to total physical and mental exhaustion. His muscles were constantly sore from lack of use and dehydration. He felt like he'd become a different person. His personality, his emotional life, his physical body, all had been transformed by constant urination, dehydration, and fatigue. A previous version of Nicholas would have agreed with Thomas, would have argued that to even print the N-word, regardless of context, was immoral and harmful to Black people. What had changed? Had he merely grown tired of the moralizing antics of the hyper-woke left? Or was it possible that his illness was turning him right-wing? Am I red-pilled? He wondered. Or am I just exhausted and dehydrated and a narcissist? Nicholas considered himself a performer first and foremost, but once he became ill, he found it more difficult to perform as his drag character, Miss Harmony. Every time he had a gig, he was stuck in bed with exhaustion for 3 to 5 days afterwards. Writing had become his primary means of creative expression, mostly due to the simple fact that he could do it from his bed. In fact, Nicholas hadn't started writing and publishing at all until his symptoms began. In a way, he felt like writing had become a kind of surrogate for performance, a way to satisfy the same creative impulse without sacrificing his health every time he did it. But the more he wrote and published, and the more time he spent on literary Twitter, the more he felt an odd shift taking place in his moral and political values. But how much of it was real, he wondered, and how much was simply theater? How much was a reflection of his true self, his creative spirit, his inner light, and how much was an expression of his fatigue, exhaustion, and lack of proper hydration? Nicholas wondered too if he would go back to being normal once his health improved. In many ways, he missed being a libtard, a word many of his online friends used to describe liberals. Things had been much simpler then, he thought, less ambiguous. The whole world drawn in black and white. He didn't explain much of this on Thomas's podcast, though. Thomas didn't seem very interested in the topic. So you had a psychotic break, said Thomas. What was that like? It's difficult to describe, said Nicholas. Language requires a shared reality that we can all access. During psychosis, you become privy to a different reality, one that isn't shared, or at least not among everyone. And without that shared reality, the power of language starts to break down. You can't describe the things you see or the experiences you have or even the sense impressions you get because they don't correspond to objects or ideas in the reality we all share. I guess the term for it would be hallucinations, but everything I saw then that I know wasn't objectively real, at the time, that stuff seemed more real than anything else I'd ever seen before. Whoa, said Thomas. I'm getting anxious just hearing you describe that. Nicholas wasn't sure what to say. Thomas did look rather agitated. He said, should we talk about something else then? So you still live with your parents? Thomas asked. What's that like? I don't still live with my parents, Nicholas said. I live with them again. I left home when I was 16 and didn't move back until a few years ago when I was getting sober. Obviously, it's not ideal and hopefully it won't be permanent. But at the same time, I'm grateful to have a family who... Have you always been thin? Thomas asked. When did you start losing your hair? Nicholas ran his fingers across his scalp self-consciously. I haven't lost my hair, he said. I just prefer shaving my head. Nicholas reached for his coffee mug. The coffee was by now lukewarm. Only one mouthful remained. He lifted the mug to his lips and tipped back his head, filling his mouth with coffee. He held it in his mouth until it turned cold, savoring the rich, bitter flavor. He imagined the coffee trickling down his throat and into his stomach, then being absorbed into his bloodstream through his stomach lining. He imagined the liquid zooming from his blood into his kidneys, then on into his bladder. As he'd done countless times over the past 3 years, he tried to will his body into correcting its inappropriate overproduction of urine. He visualized water going back into his bloodstream instead of collecting in his bladder. He tried to remember what it felt like to be hydrated, energetic, and healthy. What it felt like to run 3 miles every day. The way breath filled his lungs while he jogged in the early morning air. The sensation of sunlight warming his sweat-soaked face. I am the master of my own reality, he whispered. What? Said Thomas. Nicholas zoned back into reality. He couldn't even remember what the question had been. He shifted uncomfortably in his chair, discomfort radiating from his urine-filled bladder. Can we stop now? He said. I'm starting to get pretty tired. That night in bed, Nicholas read The Shining by Stephen King. He had just reached the section of the book where Dick Halloran, the Overlook Hotel's cook, re-enters the plot. While working at a resort in Florida during the Overlook's off-season, Halloran receives a series of psychic distress signals from Danny Torrance, whose father Jack has been driven mad by the demonic presence haunting the Overlook. Halloran then becomes one of the novel's main characters, and the reader follows his journey from Florida to Colorado, where he will attempt to rescue Danny and his mother from the evil hotel. Starting at around page 450, Nicholas began to notice more and more instances of the N-word. All the sections about Halloran seemed to contain at least one instance of the slur. Nicholas wondered if Stephen King's audience in the 1970s, which surely had included at least some Black readers, had tolerated King's frequent use of the N-word due to the high degree of racism present in society during that period. Were people just saying it more back then, he wondered? Or was everyone just more sensitive today? Were all these N-words really necessary? Could King get away with using it today? Would he even attempt it? Would it be so wrong if he did? Nicholas opened his laptop and Googled Stephen King N-word. He scrolled through pages of results on websites like Quora, Reddit, and Goodreads. Some posts defended Stephen King in his use of the slur, but many argued that it was offensive, even harmful for him to include it in his books. Later, Nicholas laid in bed, staring at the wall, where the outline of a dark figure was faintly visible. It was roughly the size of a large human, but completely dark, except for 2 pinpricks of light, where the eyes were. Shadow Man, Nicholas thought. A squirming sensation coursed through his flesh. He felt almost paralyzed with fear, unsure whether he should look away, turn on the light, or utter some prayer or spell. The dark presence on the wall did not exude a particularly sinister aura, but Nicholas was wary all the same. He watched as the shadowy figure lifted one spindly arm and gave a slight wave. Nicholas looked around the room, noticing other shadows on the floor and wall, and felt that all of them were suddenly conscious, sentient, searching, and all focused on him. The squirming sensation in his flesh increased. Rippling waves of uncomfortable stimulation traveled up and down his arms, face, and chest. His heart rate increased and he was nauseous. He closed his eyes. "I forgive," Nicholas whispered. "I forgive. I forgive. I forgive." The next morning, Nicholas stood in the kitchen, watching his mother eat processed, wheat-based, PUFA-containing sesame sticks while staring blankly out the window. Over the past several years, Nicholas's mother had fallen victim to an array of health problems, including cancer, spinal issues, and eye deterioration. Nicholas sometimes tried to point out ways in which his mother's poor diet might be contributing to her overall ill health, but his mother rarely appreciated such unasked-for interventions. Nicholas had recently read Tao Lin's autofiction novel Leave Society, in which the protagonist, Lee, frequently offers his mother suggestions regarding supplements, medications, dental work, and nutrition. While reading Leave Society, Nicholas felt some slight pangs of jealousy whenever Lee and his mother conversed about health. Unlike Nicholas's mother, Lee's mother took seriously the health suggestions proffered by Lee. While she didn't always take Lee's advice, she at least seemed appreciative of the efforts Lee made on her behalf. Nicholas wished his own mother could be more like Lee's. He wondered if perhaps his mother's willfulness was a result of her Western upbringing or the feminism she'd discovered while she was still in her 20s. Nicholas toyed with the idea of emailing Tao Lin to ask for advice about his health issues and about dealing with his mother and her willfulness, but decided it would be inappropriate, given that they'd only interacted once, when Tao had written to politely decline 2 pieces of writing Nicholas had sent to Moo House during its open submission period. "Feel free to send more when we open again," Tao had written. "Maybe I'll write a piece of autofiction describing my symptoms and send it to Moo House when they open again," Nicholas thought, "and Tao Lin will read about my symptoms and take a special interest in my case." The idea seemed at least slightly less inappropriate, if more passive-aggressive, than asking directly, and Nicholas resolved to make an attempt. "It's worth a try at least," he thought. Several nights later, Nicholas checked the clock on his laptop. 2:36 a.m. "I need to stop staying up so late," he thought. "I need to stop looking at Twitter." From the laptop speakers, healing ambient music played. With great effort, Nicholas sat up and rolled himself out of bed and down onto the floor. He sat cross-legged on the rug, looking at his reflection in the full-length mirror. In his right hand, he held a Lemurian quartz crystal. In his left, a small piece of meteoric glass known as moldavite. "My thoughts create my reality," Nicholas whispered. "I am the master of my destiny." Then, in a slightly louder voice, he said, still looking at his reflection in the mirror, "I forgive you. I forgive you for all of it. I love you, and I forgive you. It doesn't matter what you did, and it doesn't matter why. None of that matters now. You deserve to heal, and I forgive you for everything." Nicholas unfocused his eyes. Almost immediately, a hazy gray shimmer appeared in his bedroom's reflected mirror image. As his own reflection became muzzier, Nicholas fancied he could see another presence hidden inside it. The eyes were larger than Nicholas's, the pupils fully dilated. The flesh on its face was gray, saggy, and paper thin. The eyebrows were white, and as he examined them, the hairs seemed to change, curling around themselves and growing longer, like ivy creeping up the side of a house. This is another Nicholas, thought Nicholas. The presence seemed pleased when Nicholas thought this. Its upper lip curled and sharp fangs poked out in a wolf-like grin. "Hello," said Nicholas. He waited, watching the other Nicholas watch him. "What do you want?" Nicholas asked. "If I give you what you want, will you go away?" Nicholas and the other Nicholas regarded one another. "Answer me," said Nicholas. "I'm not afraid of you. Tell me, what do you want?" Minutes passed. The only sounds were the low hum of Nicholas's HEPA filter and the soft electronic pulse of the music from his laptop. Nicholas said, "If I give you what you want, will you go away?" But the other Nicholas said nothing.
Unity. First of all, I just want to go on the record as condemning Calamity House or wait, what was it? The Calamity Manual, as condemning the Calamity Manual and everything they represent. But Unity, oh my God, this is a fantastic piece. I hope you do send it to Tao Lin, because he would be a fucking fool not to accept it. So here's the thing, like, setting all the auto-fictional stuff aside and treating this like as straight fiction, like, this is just, it's wonderful how this piece develops, because first of all, it's an incredibly vivid, like, depiction of illness, and it manages to be a very vivid and visceral, like, depiction of illness without being gross, which is very rare. Like, usually when people want you to, like, feel the symptoms of an illness, they fixate on, like, the nastiness of it. But here, by using, like, clinical precision and just sketching out the symptoms and the way they impact day-to-day life, you've crafted a really, like, honest but really, like, effective, like, really, like, felt depiction of illness. But and if that was it, if this was like a 5-page story about having to deal with chronic illness and not being able to find a first of all, not being able to find a diagnosis that fits, and then not being able to find treatment that fits, and then going through, like, the rigors and the rigors of, like, looking at alternative medicine and all that, and being frustrated again and again. If it was just that, it would be a really effective story. But the twist that you take about 2/3 of the way through, where it becomes more about, like, spiritual illness and, like, societal illness, and this sense of, like, to what degree, like, has the illness, like, created your new sense of self, and to what degree, like, has these philosophical changes you've gone through been a function of the illness. And the way that, like, because I know I've felt this, right? Like, I've felt sometimes that, like, geez, I wonder to what degree is this constant immersion in this dark and ugly, like, literary space, like, contributing to my own, like, both physical and mental sickness. But and conversely, like, to what degree is it just an expression of that? Like, to what degree is it actually, like, this cathartic thing that I turn to like, help exercise that demon? And I love the way that you go through all of that, that your narrator goes through all of that in this piece, without it ever reaching a firm conclusion, or without it ever reaching, like, oh, aha. Even the ending, where you, like, get on the cusp of this moment of, like, exiting this world, right? Of having this moment, this real, like, spiritual moment, offers nothing, like, not in a bad way, but offers no, like, easy pat answer. It's like, is this a relapse into psychosis? Is this moment of spiritual transcendence? Or are both of those things on some level like worse than what this is, because like you can't even access those things, and this is just kind of an empty like moment of attempting to like commune with yourself. I don't know, it's just a fantastic fucking piece, Unity, and thank you so much for sharing it.
Thank you.
um,
And thanks to anyone who made it through the whole thing. It really felt good to read. So I appreciate it very much.
Yeah, it didn't feel fucking long. It did not feel long. I will be honest, there are times when people read a long piece on here, and even if it's really good, I can feel the length. This time I didn't feel the length at all. So yeah. Yeah, but thank you. So we have a poem by Adam, and then Sam wants to read one last time. So Adam, you can read, and then Sam, I swear to God, you get 3 readings that per Miseryless Company, and that's it. I'm cutting you off after 3. So Adam, you're up next.
Can I go after Sam? I'm trying to figure out how to copy and paste what I have into the chat.
Okay, that's fine. Sam, it's all you. Actually, let me check really quick. Has Josh Sherman arrived? I know he hasn't. I know he stood us up tonight, even though I mentioned him in the tweet. But yeah, okay, Sam. Oh, did we lose Sam actually? I think we may have lost Sam. Okay, this thing's coming undone. Adam, can you close us out for the night? If you need a couple more, if you need a little while longer, I can
I just don't know how
stall.
to paste. I don't know how MacBooks work. Actually, here we go.
Okay.
All right, just in case anyone wanted to read it while I'm reading. All right, this is really quick. It's a poem called Larson Tattletales. Larson hears 6 church bells. He is not saintly thinking, rather he is almost through with sucking on tailpipes and his goddamn catalytic converter heists from hell. He wants to be inventingly and not just diddly bopping his world beater from 1893. He would like to fuck a fast, agile athlete of 2 decades or more, but less than 3. Or just get a cappuccino. Hey, bingo bongo, from Fat Lungs, whom and who Larson took for deceased and the like. Turns out he wasn't, LOL. Larson stays out of the way as Fat Lungs drifts idly by, scratching Mons pubis and leaving a wake of dandruff and an odor of tripe, etc. Larson follows Fat Lungs to a McDonald's where Fat Lungs is so famous in his mind. He jumps into the ball crawl to hunt waifs. He is shallow, despicable, and unregistered. God damn that motherfucker, whispers Larson, who and whom hits a payphone and landlines the cops. Larson watches Fat Lungs perp walk first, from balls to feet to squad. Hours later, Larson is celebrating his own self as a stool pigeon for Onsley. Schnapps, Capri Slim menthols, and ghost riding in a Ford Ranger and firing rounds from his .38 special into the fucking woods and sky, while Mariah Carey blasts from an aftermarket Pioneer. He is so happy. Just let him be. That's it.
Adam, I want to say this. When you started reading, it's 10:30. I didn't sleep well last night. I was getting tired, and I could feel myself getting tired. By the end of that poem, I was invigorated. Like the sheer manic energy of Larson, especially of that last stretch of that last image. Ghost riding in a Ford Ranger and firing rounds from his .38 special into the fucking woods and sky while Mariah Carey blasts from an aftermarket Pioneer. He is so happy. Just let him be. Man, just the energetic intensity. Like I felt in that moment like Larson. I was like, yeah, fuck yeah. I want to say, as usual, as is especially typical of your Larson poems, Adam, like the phrasing and the wordplay and everything is so on point. There are so many beautiful, memorable lines and insanely memorable lines in this short poem. But my favorite is he's shallow, despicable, and unregistered. That is just such a great evocative turn of phrase that tells you so much about the character. Anyway, Adam, thank you so much. That was a great poem.
Thanks for letting me sneak in at the end.
Yeah, thank you, man. I think that's it. I think I'm gonna call it there. It's getting late. Josh, if you're watching this after the fact, I'm gonna nag you about the fact that you signed up and no-showed. I hope he's okay. I hope that he's been able to survive a couple of days without Twitter here. Anyway, so I will leave, as usual, I'll leave the Zoom meeting up for a while after I finish recording and people can hang out and talk or whatever. But yeah, if you're watching this on YouTube, this has been Misery Loves Company. We do this every Friday night, 8 p.m. Eastern Time, 5 p.m. Pacific. Anyone is welcome to come and share their work. Anyone is welcome to come and just lurk and hang out and listen to the readings. We tweet out the link from our Twitter account at Misery Tourism just before we start. And yeah, fuck, guys, this has been a really incredible night. Like, so many great pieces and like so many like really like almost religiously transcendent pieces tonight. This has been one of the greats, I think. Thank you so much to everyone who read. And I think that's fucking it. Let's stop the recording here.